Hello and welcome. This is the Adosia Milestone 4, final milestone for the Adosia Open Governance Project. This is a Fund 10 proposal that was to build a open model of governance that could be repeated or be replicable for community members if they wanted to build their own governance model for a DAO or a business running in Web3. And this was funded by Project Catalyst. And this particular video is a retrospective video. So we are gathering together. I have Chris, Pete, and Kyle with me, who've all participated in building this open governance model, especially Chris and Pete, who really took the lead on this one and ran through every step of the way. So today, guys, let's talk a little bit about the good, the bad, the ugly, right? What went right? What went wrong? And what just sucked? How's it going, guys?
It's going good.
Well.
Good. Good. Happy to be here at this retrospective moment here at the end of the project.
So we can go about this two ways. We can start with the easy stuff and kind of work our way in, or we can dive right in and take care of the bad stuff and then end off on a good note. Which direction do you guys prefer to go?
I mean, we can start from the beginning and work our way through.
Yeah, I mean, are there a list of questions that we should be addressing and kind of in that order we can go through, or?
Yeah, so I just want to, do we want to go start it with the ugly or do we want to start with the good? You want to start with the easy stuff or do you want to get the hard stuff out of the way?
Hard first.
Your choice. Hard first. All right, the ugly. Not just me, not just you ugly guys. The ugly. What about this process just sucked? What was the slog?
Personally, the thing that bothered me the most was just general lack of interest. I came into this thinking, and I know they're having the same kind of thing with Intersect, and just it's kind of an across the board thing. If you go over to the 1694 GitHub and read through comments, there's a lot of comments, but there's very low participation. It's just a handful of people really churning out the work. And I guess I mistakenly believe that coming into this project, since governance is the main interest in Cardano right now, you're moving into the Voltaire era and what have you, that there will be a lot of interest in this. And I was wrong. Now, the flip side of that is that people that were interested, that we're able to get on Twitter Spaces and YouTube and the Discord and whatever, those people that did show up were highly interested.
We'll save the good stuff for later. Right now we're doing the
that one for me personally was just the lack of interest, and there were times where it felt like Peter and I were just kind of banging our heads against the wall, and
All right. So Chris has lack of interest. Pete, what's your take? What's the ugly? What's the part just stuck in your craw the most in this process?
So I say, like, we had a plan. The proposal has a plan in it. It has some milestones. It has a budget. But I think for me, like, at the beginning of the project, we had a resemblance of a plan, but we didn't step in as a team and really finally articulate who was doing what and when, and kind of map out, let's say, if the project was 4 months, exactly what was going to be getting done each week. I think that would have been really helpful to do, because Fund 10 ended in November or the beginning of December or something like that.
Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around that. So
yeah, I think the first payments did come out either December or January. Is right.
So the first milestone is to write, do some research and write a little paper about it. And so that went pretty smoothly at the beginning. But then right when we were supposed to be engaging with our internal ambassadors and our community, it was just right over the holidays. And so we didn't plan. We should have planned before the holidays to, like, just put stuff on the calendar so we could start inviting people to in January without, like, having to come back in from the holidays, reorient, like, get solid back with the team, and then start the planning when we're kind of not sure exactly, like, well, it's not that we don't know exactly how to do workshops or anything like that, but it's just like kind of coordinate each other, coordinating with the community, make sure there's people to show up, like Chris said, lack of interest. So that's the big, like, if I feel like if we had done more planning ahead, we would have had a stronger united front to be able to drum up more interest and show that we have a solid plan. And you can go to, there's 3 opportunities for you to come to one of these workshops. These are the dates and the times, and that would have allowed us to get a little bit more, I feel like. So
Gotcha. So Chris, lack of participation. Pete, maybe lack of planning, that never a plan that's met reality without having to change, which happens.
exactly.
But at least having to mapped out, thinking about the holidays. That's a very good point, because that actually has happened with several things. But like I said, we're pretty good at facilitating things, but not necessarily getting enough people together at one time. So Kyle, for you, what's your take? What's the ugly? What's stuck in your craw from this proposal?
I mean, I think for me, from standing kind of a little bit detached from it from a leadership perspective, I mean, the goal was really to kind of have the community put this together without too much influence from leadership. So the hard part for me was really just a lack of operational clarity. This was all happening at a very, very rough time in Cardano. Markets are down. Holidays were one aspect, but and I think that ties into Chris's frustration with lack of interest. Markets were not doing well. We were just coming off of a drop to 25 cents or so from ADA price, and you're seeing a really all-time low interest in Cardano in general. For things that weren't really putting money in people's pockets. That paired with the core initiative not being funded, in the parallel catalyst proposal we had with governance, put a whole lot of strain on the project in itself. And we've got a lot of talented developers, but there's a lot of kind of cross pollination. Developers are working on different teams, and really the hardest part for me was kind of keeping everybody here, but also understanding that core Adosia project ultimately needed to be rolled out on a side chain, and what that looked like, we couldn't really define exactly all the parameters of governance. Hence, a V1 is really supposed to kind of get us in the ballpark for when we did roll that product. And I think my inability to articulate exactly what was going to be needed from a functional perspective to even have a vision for that was the most frustrating thing for me. And I think that translated into frustration for you guys, because you guys kind of just felt like, all right, we're going to put some things together and get in the ballpark. But I think where we may have failed to reiterate, and I know we communicated it, at least once, but maybe not reiterate, was the fact that this is a V1 and it's okay to get it wrong. We're going to have to make changes here. And I think that may have translated to frustration for you guys.
All right. So let's see if I can recap the ugly side of this round. We had Chris bringing in the fact that there was a just low level of interest in the first place from the community. We had Pete coming in that maybe planning wasn't set up well enough, and then Kyle saying that scope wasn't maybe articulated and communicated well enough. So that's the ugly. That wasn't so hard, was it, guys? We got through it pretty well, right? And I agree. Those things were the ugly elements of what we were dealing with here. So let's move on. We're gonna get hit to the bad. What are the lessons that we took away that we are not doing again? What's the bad from this, Chris?
I mean, I guess kind of a reinforcement of what Peter was saying. Like, well, if we were to do something like this again, and future projects we work on, we'll certainly want to
We
do more
will.
calendaring and profiling engagement a little bit better, so we have a roadmap that's a little more concise. That's probably it, really. That one.
Yeah, you're gonna not plan.
Right.
Gotcha. Pete, what about you, bud? What is the bad? What's the one thing you did that you're not doing this next time? What is it going to be?
yeah, not doing next time. I'm trying to think of a different one than Chris brought.
I stole it.
Because that was a good one. In terms of mediums of being able to, like, we did some workshops like in Zoom, which I have appreciated. We tried to do ones that engaged larger amounts of people, like Twitter Spaces. Twitter Spaces are an interesting medium. I would say that one thing I've learned about workshops this year so far, working on workshops with Adosia and another project, is that it's easier to do workshops with smaller groups of people. So instead of trying to invite a ton of people, just say, let's figure out how to streamline the post production of a workshop as as minimal as possible, and then just spend more time talking with people, and so with a fewer number of people, and being okay and not being like, we need to have some numbers here, but instead, no, we're trying to go for quality over quantity, and focus there. That's one thing, because I didn't feel like we got anything out of Twitter Spaces, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, you picked a good one, Pete. I think that's great, and I would say it matches some experiences I've had this year as well. That a smaller workshop actually was way more productive. Kyle was there; he knows that small workshop was so productive compared to the larger ones. It was incredible. So, but Kyle, for you, what is the one thing that you're not going to do next time we go?
I think for me personally, what I would avoid doing is kind of I'm used to just kind of delegating tasks and having the team run with it, and that was kind of how I approached this particular project. I think I'm not going to do that moving forward. I'm going to take a more hands-on approach, meeting with every line item on the budget and make sure expectations are very clear set from the get-go, but also looking at line items where we're relying on the community for a big part, these seminars, these networks, and making sure that there's budgets there for those individuals, even if it's something like 500 or 1,000 ADA for people to attend 2 or 3 webinars, and we have a roster of 6 or 7. Now we can hold people accountable to commitments and things like that, rather than asking the community to contribute their time and sweat during the hardest part of a market, because we can't control those conditions.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. So I'll try to recap this one as well. So the bad is we're going to not plan. We're going to make sure events are better planned, and to put that in this positive spin, we're going to put it, planned more. To Pete's point, we're not going to aim for big, huge groups of people. We're actually going to aim to do smaller groups of people more efficiently, faster, and then try to collate that data later. And then Kyle is not going to be hands off and delegating. He's going to be more hands on. All right. Good. A good way to get through the bad. So take a breath. We got through the tough parts. Now this is the easy part of the retrospective. What went good? What was the best part of building an open governance model for you, Chris?
The different points of view that we were able to absorb. Like Peter mentioned, Twitter Spaces is interesting, but the best feedback we got out of doing several of those was from Andrew Westberg, and we could almost quantify the entire Twitter experience to just that one conversation. But outside of that medium, Space Place was really good. That was a really good conversation. I wish we could have done more of those. We certainly will in the future, as far as Adosia is concerned, if we have to do research and stuff going forward, because that was a really good exchange we had with a lot of people. Some of the conversations we had on Discord were really healthy, and some of the ambassador chats we were able to have, like with Caleb and Matthias, those were actually probably the most value extracted from the conversations we've had with folks. Probably came from those two guys, really helping us articulate, the weak spots and where our kind of our starting board was to where we arrived at. But really just the different viewpoints, and for me personally, this is something I never would have probably had a need to do or learn about, with the different cultural models of governance that corporations use around the world. The Anglo-American model, the European model, the Asian model. These are things that I never would have even, thought were a thing, because it's just not part of my daily routine. And learning about things like the short-termism of, the American side of, corporate operations, and, some of the relationship-based governance models in Japan and other parts of Asia. All these things. These are things that were valuable for me personally, just to have awareness of and learn about.
Gotcha. Diversity and diversity of opinion and personal growth sounds good. Pete, what about you, man? What was the good that happened to you from going through this process?
Good things from this experience. Obviously, I like to work on teams and learn about working on teams, and I feel like I learned a lot through this. So I'm very thankful for that, and that's always good. And that's what I like about like a ethos to iterate and keep trying again. I really, looking back, since we're in the retro, I really appreciate the consistency with like delivering on time, uh from Lloyd especially, and Kyle, and that kept the ball moving and made it so this didn't drag out. Now I was pushing back on that at the beginning because I was like, what is this, a little chaotic, what's going on? But we adjusted and worked through that, and now we get to in the future iterate again and not um, drag this out too much, because the point is iterating. So that's one thing that I am happy about, and I've learned a lot through the experience of iterating. This is the OODA loop principle: observe, orient, decide, act. The faster we can do it, the well, whoever's doing it the fastest wins.
There you go. Pete brought home that idea that not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good,
hmm
right? So we can get through. And yeah, OODA loops are fantastic. What a great, meaningful way of capturing this idea of iteration. So, and Kyle, what about you? What was the good? What
Well,
worked?
we
What
achieved
worked for
useful
us?
output that we absolutely can use into reiterating, right? And simultaneously, we kept great talent here during a very tumultuous period in the market. So, I mean, this is a huge win for me from a leadership perspective.
Yep. All right. Well, and so on that note, guys, this has been a great, quick 20-minute retrospective. We went through the ugly, the bad, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I really appreciate the reviewers for paying attention and watching this. And for anyone else in the community that can learn from this, we appreciate you paying attention and giving us your eyes for a few minutes to go over the retrospective of Adosia's Fund 10 Open Governance proposal. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.